So in last week's episode, we briefly talked about the former sheriff of Maricopa County, Arizona, criminal convict Joe Arpaio, and how he's running for the United States Senate. Now, on last week's show, I noted how he doesn't really seem to have any real issue in mind that is propelling this campaign. He's not running on any platform in particular other than supporting Donald Trump, and I am now here to report a week later that he still seemingly has absolutely no clue why he's running for the Senate.
But the question is, why am I doing this? Well, I'll tell you. First of all, I'm a big supporter of the president from day one, July 2015. I endorsed him, I introduced him, and I said he would be the next president. I guess I was right on that. So I have a great respect for the president, and between you and I don't like the what's going on with certain people going after him. He's done a great job, and I want to do something to help him and help the people of Arizona. So I've had a long career, 60 years serving my country, 56 years in law enforcement. Joined the Army when the Korean War started.
Right.
Was a cop in D.C. I can go on and on.
Believe me, he does go on and on and on until Chris Cuomo finally cut him off. But I mean, he let him just drone on way longer than he should have. So he states here, I want to do something to help him, meaning Donald Trump, and the people of Arizona. He wants to do something. He doesn't necessarily know what, but he knows it's going to be something good to help them. I mean, what's the point of your campaign, Joe? Why are you running? If you don't have any issue that is pulling on your heart that you just feel so passionate about, then why are you running? He knows that since this is a national campaign, it's going to get national press coverage. He can't just be overtly racist like he previously was. So he has to pretend as if, you know, he has this equitable philosophy about the world and that he thinks everyone is equal, and he would never target undocumented immigrants or Mexicans in general, even if he was convicted of doing just that. But now, since he can't just come out and overtly be racist, he doesn't really know what to run on, because we know deep down Joe Arpaio is running because he is racist. And when he says he wants to support Donald Trump's agenda, well, without saying it, he's basically saying, I'm going to help him push for deportation. I'm going to help him get that wall approved. I mean, these are the things that Joe Arpaio would obviously fight for in the event he was elected to the United States Senate. So Joe Arpaio doesn't know why he's running. And not knowing why you want to run is a big enough reason to not run in the first place, but additionally, he has a criminal record. That's another reason why maybe you should sit this one out, Joe, but according to him, we're all wrong and he's completely innocent.
You went out in some ignominious circumstances, and now you're asking the people to give you another chance. I mean, have you changed? Do you no longer believe in profiling Latinos and stopping them just because of the color of their skin? Do you believe in no longer herding people together and putting them in bad conditions?
That is wrong. That is wrong.
You were convicted of it.
My guys do not raise, no, convicted by a judge,
right?
No jury, who was very biased. I'm not going to go into his history. One day it's going to come out very soon.
You were told to stop a discriminatory practice and you refused, Joe, and you got convicted of contempt.
We did not refuse. No. We had the authority to do it by the federal government. They swore in all my deputies to be immigration officers, and we were doing our job in that period. Evidently, the judge did not agree with it, even though the federal government laid the guidelines how we would do it. But that's one issue. Then he turns it over to another judge for contempt of court.
Right.
Now that judge refused to give me a jury trial. One day before early voting, Obama's Department of Justice, Holder and Loretta Lynch, said they're going to charge me on a misdemeanor, contempt of court, get the same time as barking dogs, and then during the election, they charged me.
Why didn't you just stop stopping people because they were Mexican?
We never stopped people because they were Mexican. We stopped people because they were committing a crime.
There was an established pattern of your pulling people over because they were Latino. That's how you got in court in the first place, Sheriff.
No. That's what the judge
That's what the prosecutor said.
That's
what the prosecutors said. They brought the case. This judge didn't just come knock on your door and tell you were guilty. There was a prosecution involved because of a pattern of conduct. Now, either you believe in that kind of stuff, and that's what you want to represent yourself as to the voters in Arizona, or you don't. Which is it?
Well, I'm telling you, you're bringing that up, okay?
Yes, sir.
And I'm telling you again, we're not guilty of that contempt of court, and that's why the president realized that and gave me a pardon, and I never asked for it. So when you got a judge is not going to go against her fellow judge on a contempt of court, and everybody in the courtroom knew that I was not guilty.
Except the prosecutor and the judges.
He's totally innocent, you guys. He only set up Tent City, bragged about it, and likened the conditions in his jails to that of concentration camps, but I mean, he's totally innocent. He totally wasn't just accused of racially profiling individuals and ordered to stop and then defy the judge's orders. I mean, this is ridiculous. Look, and one thing that's so unique about the Joe Arpaio case is that in the United States, we typically have a two-tier justice system. So if you are rich or powerful, typically you're probably going to be able to get away with crimes that you want to commit. Whereas normal, everyday Americans, if they commit crimes, they get locked up, they get convicted of it. But Joe Arpaio is one of the few individuals with power that was actually prosecuted and convicted for crimes he committed. So that just goes to show you how much of a criminal and how corrupt he really is. And yes, I'm not just saying corrupt because I like to throw that word out there. He was also accused of corruption as well. So, I mean, the extent to which Joe Arpaio is unqualified can't be overstated. This guy is not just unqualified, he is certifiably insane. And you could really get the sense that there's something off about him in these interviews. But in spite of everything he did, all the crimes he committed, even if he was convicted by it, so by definition he did something wrong, well, he claims that he has no regrets.
No, I don't have regrets. A few mistakes, yes. Everybody makes mistakes.
Was the birtherism a mistake?
When you have a... Oh, now you're bringing that up.
Well, why wouldn't I?
I'm going to tell you something.
Do you think it doesn't matter?
You
want to be a U.S. senator and you were part of a campaign to delegitimize a president of the United States? Matters, no?
No. I started this because of fake document, a government document. I didn't care where the president came from. I didn't care at all. And we have the evidence. Nobody will talk about it. Nobody will look at it. And anytime you want to come down, or anybody will be glad to show you the evidence. And by the way, you're going to hear more about this fake,
so you believe that
birth certificate.
President Obama's birth certificate is a phony?
No doubt about it.
So there you have it. I mean, there's not really much that I have to say to convince you that this guy is... something's not right about him, to put it nicely. But I actually want to switch gears, because my question is, why are they even giving him a platform to defend himself to begin with when we all know that he's guilty? Now, I think the general answer to that question is that sunlight is probably the best disinfectant. So if you put him in front of a camera, then people will realize just how crazy he is. But I don't think that's necessarily true. Because look at Donald Trump. Donald Trump was covered nonstop, and he was covered because of how crazy he was. I mean, it was a spectacle. And yet, even if the media was giving Trump bad coverage overall, negative coverage, with the exception of Fox News, they still unwittingly legitimized him. They made it seem as though he was a legitimate candidate because of the way they covered his campaign nonstop. And I'm worried that that same thing could happen here. Now, this didn't happen with Roy Moore. Roy Moore got a lot of national press coverage, but he still lost. But again, it was Roy Moore. I think that Joe Arpaio probably has a better chance of winning than Roy Moore because Roy Moore was a pedophile. But my question here in asking about the media's coverage of Joe Arpaio is, why would you give someone like Joe Arpaio a platform but ignore people like Amy Vilela, who's running for Congress in the 4th Congressional District of Nevada? Why would you ignore someone like Paula Jean Swearengin, who is a powerful opponent to Joe Manchin? Why would you not talk about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, even though she is running one of the strongest campaigns we've seen? Why are all of those progressive candidates getting ignored, but lunatics like Roy Moore and Joe Arpaio receiving pretty much nonstop coverage? It makes no sense to me. Now, I understand that, ironically, I'm kind of guilty of this as well, right? Because I'm talking about Joe Arpaio. His name was in the title of this video, but I think it's worth pointing out that in this country, part of the reason why we are in our current political predicament, part of the reason why the Overton window in the country shifted so far to the right is because the media, with their corporate agenda, they do provide coverage to these right-wing extremist candidates because they have that profit incentive. They don't really care about politics so much as they care about getting eyeballs to the screen and getting views and getting ratings. So candidates like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Paula Jean Swearengin, Amy Vilela, they probably wouldn't generate the amount of attention as someone like Joe Arpaio. You know, it's a spectacle. It's entertaining. But I think that we really have to come together as a society and stop legitimizing candidates like Joe Arpaio. Stop putting them in the spotlight, because even though we think we're showing just how crazy they are, people like what they have to say. You're only broadcasting their message to a bigger audience. Now again, ironically, I'm talking about him. I'm part of the problem here. But the difference between independent media and corporate media is that we actually have progressive candidates on the show. We've had Stephen Jaffe on the show, Sam Ronan, Amy Vilela, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Cori Bush. I mean, we've had people on the show that are actually legitimate candidates who are progressive, who can win, who have real, substantive things to say about policy. Why can't the media do that too? It's why people are turning to independent media networks. So look, that's my thoughts. You know, of course, Joe Arpaio is not a legitimate candidate. He's a complete joke. And I hope that the media doesn't turn this into another spectacle like Donald Trump. Hopefully, you know, just the midterms in general with other candidates running will drown him out. But I'm not hopeful. I'm not hopeful at all. This segment of the Humanist Report was brought to you by 7coffeeroasters.com. They're a minority-owned small business in Seattle, and they specialize in roasting unique and delicious coffee that's not actually roasted until you've placed your order. And the best part is that they actually ship out all orders within 24 hours, so you get your coffee and it still tastes fresh when it arrives. And to boot, they're also a progressive company that pays their workers a living wage and actually cares about the country. So to support them and experience the deliciousness of their coffee, you can check out 7coffeeroasters.com.